Okay, so we're at the bottom of Daf Ein Gimel Beis. Zok to Heilige Gemara. I'm going to go back a little bit because it's part of the story of Reb Chama. It's about 10 lines from the bottom. Amar Reb Chama, Hayman de Yoz Zuzi Lachavre, O Hayoim Tisha Asar Yoim, Shem Shnei Shavuos V'Chayimish Yom Loimer. Today's the 6th day of Iyar, right? Because 5 Iyar, no, it can't be.
Today's the 4th day.
Today's the 4th day. Today's the 4th day because the 3rd day of Iyar is Shai Mosh. Right. Amar Reb Chama, Hayman. The Yoyev Zuzi Lachavre Lemizben Lechamra. He gave money to his friend to purchase wine on his behalf. Now, early in the season, where it's worth less, because later it's going to go up. Now, the Rishonim tell us that there must have been some type of specific t'nai made, or maybe the fact that I gave him money creates status chayvis, and they made up. They also must have made up that if he doesn't buy the wine, he's liable to pay the Mishalech who was trying to buy the wine at a lower price. Upasha v'loizovenly, and he didn't do his job. So the law is Mishalem le'kedeka azal aparvasa dezul shafat. Either it means expensive market, or it means it was a market that people bought from. They always had, but whatever the case is, it's definitely going to cost more to buy that same amount of wine now than it would have costed earlier had he followed through on his commitment, and therefore he has to pay the difference. Amar Amemar, Amishal Shemaitza, Kamed Rabsvid Binarda. And he told me as follows: Amar Kik, Amar Reb Chama, maybe if Reb Chama was Mechayiv, this fellow to pay the difference, that's only Hanamili Biyayin stop. That's only if the appointment was to buy wine for me, where the likelihood is he would be able to find a vendor somewhere who would be willing to sell him the wine at that time. What if the Mishalech was specifically telling the Shliach, I want you to buy that specific wine from that specific vendor? Loy, there for sure, he wasn't makabel upon himself in his chayvis to pay if he doesn't buy it. You know why? Because miyemer de mezavni nale. Who said he would be able to purchase the wine in the first place? What if the guy didn't want to sell? What if the guy had sold already? So he would have never accepted upon himself such a bin achrayis. But if he's accepted achrayis to buy stam wine, that ain't man business. That ain't man business, because that is likely that he would be able to find it. Rabbi Yomer, no. Afilu yain stam nami loy. Why? My time asmachtahi. That's an asmachta. He asmachta loykanya. He only committed to pay the higher amount if he wouldn't buy it, because he was sure he would buy it. He didn't think it would ever come to fruition. There, it's not coin. He didn't mean really to be mechayiv himself. And this is the great child of a smach l'kanya, why we don't allow gambling.
What's a smach mean?
A smachta, Rashi says, is a smachta, I'm depending, Rashi does not say. A smachta means I'm depending on something. I'm depending on something happening, and that's why I'm saying it. A smachta, I'm relying on the fact that I'm going to fulfill my t'nai. I never intended to be mechayiv, so if I didn't fulfill my t'nai. L'smachta lo'ikanya. Zok Rashi asmachti, afilu v'tichle, u'v'yomer, im eini koinelach, efer mishali, enzu ela asmachta. It's only something that he's saying as an asmachta, however l'konim yodei, since there was no kinyan made. Okay.
I don't understand. He gave him money to buy wine.
Correct.
In the later
And
time,
they made up specifically, no, you have to buy wine right now while it's still cheap.
he didn't.
And he didn't buy it. Pasha. He didn't do, he could have and he didn't.
What's the halacha? What is it?
So Reb Chama said that he's mechuyev to pay. Let's say he could have bought 100 liters of wine. He's mechuyev to buy me now 100 liters of wine, even though it's going to be more than the money that I gave you. You have to lay it out on your own.
Because it's an asmachta.
But if you hold to the nesmachta, Reb Ashi would disagree, because he holds to the nesmachta, the person never meant to be mechayev himself, and therefore look kind. Correct Gemara, you Reb Ashi hold the smachta lekanya. I'm going to show you that a smachta is kanya. Well, Reb Ashi ma'ishno mehadatnan im oiver v'loy eved as shalom b'metzva. Rashi explains what was the case. But I was makabel to cultivate my friend's field. I'm the oris, and I would keep half of the produce, and the owner would get half of the produce. And you know what happened? The Makabel, the Oris, didn't do his job. Shaloi Charsha, he didn't plow it. So it's not fair that the owner of the field should lose out just because this guy was lazy. So therefore, Shaman Oisa, Kama Hoisa Ruya Lasis, you assess how much this field would have produced if it was processed properly. The Oris is liable to take that money out of his pocket and pay that to the owner of the property. If I leave it fallow, v'loy avid, and I don't work the field, ashalom b'metva, I'll pay you back the best of the best. The parakam makabel. Alma, keeping the av shedei b'hachi, since the oris caused loss to the owner of the field, or in our case, the person who was makabel to buy the wine was mafsid, the owner of the money, the mishalech, the aleh samach, and the owner of the field was relying on the oris. The person sending the money was relying on the person to buy the wine. Lava smachti, that's not an smachta. She'ena makabel alav, ela kedehevset shefsidui. Now Rashi throws in another fact. If I would have said, if I leave your field fallow, I owe you $1 million, maybe there he didn't mean it. He's exaggerating. But here he said, I'm going to pay you back what you lost. Same thing with the wine. That's a reasonable hischayvus. And the vada, you don't say smachta. In our wine is the same thing. I don't even have to pay back the losses. Why? It's a reasonable thing. Dr. Gemara, and these three words are big words. Hacha lav b'yod. Shem Elohim kareyola. By the field, it's in your hands completely. You plant it, it's going to be cultivated, it's going to grow. But even if it's yain stam, it's not 100% that he'd be able to purchase it. Maybe he wouldn't. So what is the gather? The gather is that if it's completely in your hands, that is not an smachta. But if it's not 100% in your hands, then it's called an smachta. Because how could I know, to be b'chayvus of, how could I know for sure that I'll be able to buy? Zog Toisus mikan maksher Rabbeinu Tam lepirish kuntris. The Perik Saboyer. Here I'm going to have a problem with Rabbeinu Tam because here Rabbeinu Tam have a problem with Rashi because in Perik Saboyer it talks about Mesachek B'Kovia gambling. Mesachek B'Kovia the Gomer Hasam the Lavas Machtahi. There the Gemara says that Mesachek B'Kovia, contrary to common belief, it's not an asmachta. Why would that not be an asmachta? It's definitely not in your hands to win the card game. Upirish B'Kuntris. Mishum de heichidami asmachta. How do you define asmachta? Kigoinim over v'loy evet, like the case that we just quoted in the brisa here. Uchagoin mas l'shtar to get pashut, or if I pay half and I give the star to a third party, and I say that if I don't pay back by X time, you can give the star back to the mall. The samech al dover, I'm relying on something. Kisover calls because he had thought that it was fully in his hands. So it's mashma from Rashi that if it's fully in your hands, that's where it's an asmachta. Umereisha kamasna adaita. We have to look at the bachal here. Umereisha kimasni. The asmachta. I'm sorry. Umereisha kimasni adaita the loyoyev uli asmachta kamasni the toya shaloyove ledekach. The whole thing was an asmachta because he thought it would never come to it that he won't plant it. Avol masacha b'kuvya loy samach hamidi. He's not relying on anything. The loyada inatzach iloynatzach. When he made that deal, he had no idea if he would win or lose. That means he means what he's talking about. So Rashi's distinction is if he has somewhat control as to whether or not he could do this item or not, well, there it's an asmachta because he's only making the promise because he intends to do it. If Funky didn't do it, he doesn't want to really make that promise. But when someone's making a promise based on a gamble, he knows he has zero control. So he can't be doing it because he thought he would win. He has no idea if he's going to win. So for carrot, gambling, which is totally out of your shoes, very taka means it. But if it's something that's in your hands, you don't really mean it. You only meant to say that I'm going to do it. That's what Rashi says. So Tosfos has a massive problem with Rashi. So Tosfos would agree with you, Monty. I forgot to put the mic on. Was the sound a little weird until now?
No, it's perfectly fine.
Oh. So maybe it's better if I took the mic away from my mouth. Here it's Masha Punktvergert. They had the lav biyod have a tveis machta, right? By the wine, it's lav biyod, there's a smachta. Where it's biyodai, that's where it's in the smachta. So that's fair. That is the problem with Rashi Shita. Zok to Rebbe Tam. The near Rebbe Tam, the Hasam Mishum Hachi Lai Have a smachta. Why is it not on a smachta? Why is it not on a smachta by gambling? The agav the boy lemikmi gomer makni. Well, I want the other side. I want the other side to work. That I should win. I want the side to that I have to agree that I should lose. Toshis slugs that up from multiple places. So at the end of the day, these are the rules. Now we're going to go to the maskana. What are the rules of asma? Rabbeinu Tam himself reversed what he said, that the reason why by playing cards, by gambling at smachta kanya, is because, listen, the same way he wants the upside, he has to be willing to accept the downside. That's not true. But you give a sefer Yashar, kabi uvda the shnaim shehem ruzeh aseh, the perik b'memet likin. That it's a hiknu zelozeh. What was the case there? It was a very interesting case. The lohiknu lahadyaruv, they didn't make the kinyan that could be chayzer. What was the case of him ruzeh aseh? It's a very famous case. It's a very, very famous case. I can't remember. I can't believe that I forgot it. We should have some over here. What's up? Shots over here. So actually, we should have over here. It's a famous case. What is it? It's a Sanhedrin Daf. Okay, what else? Is
Shabbos.
it Shabbos?
Shabbos stuff.
What was this? But a Shnaim Shehimru says it? Oh, it's Mefich Chayonim. So where's it?
The perik b'memet likin, Shabbos stuff.
Okay, that's why I'm looking in the wrong place. It makes sense why I couldn't find it. Go ahead. Shabbos. Hold on. It's a very famous case that we will recognize. Lamed Aleph? Oh, here it has to be a big one. Yeah, that was the case with the two people who made a bet with Hillel. If you can get Hillel angry, I pay $400. Right? That was a bet. Right? That was nothing to bet. But a case where two people bet, can I get? They kept knocking on the door, and Hill came out. And what happened after Hill came out 3 or 4 times, not getting upset? The guy said, "You messed me up because you cost me 400 zuz." So you see, attack there was a chiyuv. You see that smachta was kind of. So over there it must be shehiknu lazel. They made a special kinyan. The lahiknu lahadru but they could be chayzer. So let's have a look at the baskona. Let's look at this corner. The corner is mahach shmaitz in the early. The loy dummy. There's not a kasha from the case of Mesachach Bakovia to our case where we say to the case of Oiver Sadeh. Why? The hacha have a biyadoi v'loy biyad. The case of wine, it's somewhat in my control. I can go buy wine, but it's not 100% in my hands. The avagav the motzi hu liknois, even though it's pretty common to be able to find someone selling wine, mikal makoim kivon the toli bacherim. The fact of the matter is, if you want to purchase something, you need a party to work with you. You need a moicher. The employer to limkar mimiyikne. If no one's going to want to sell the wine, you can't buy. So our case is sort of in the middle. It's somewhat in your hands, but it's not completely in your hands. Hilchach loy gamar mak. No one's going to be mechayiv himself a penalty if he can't accomplish what we know, but he knows is not in his hands 100%. So that's where he says smach loy kain. Aval hasam the ein biyodei klal. But when it comes to gambling, where it's completely out of his hands, yet he's still saying, "I'm willing to take that gamble." There it's gamar mak. And on the other side, on the other extreme, if it's completely in his hands, like the case of the field, it's completely in his hands where he is going to work the field, So then it depends. He goes him if he's saying, if I don't work the field, I owe you $1 million. That's like Gomer Mak. Because because he's just saying it that he should trust him, but no one really plans to pay $1 million if he doesn't do his job. If he's just saying I'm going to pay you your losses, so that's the rule that Tosfos said. I don't know if that's halacha ma'aseh, but Tosfos says there's 3 levels. The middle level, where you have some control but not all control, there we say he didn't really mean it in the smach l'kanya, which is our Gemara. But if it's completely out of your hands or completely in your hands, there about he meant it. The only time we say he didn't mean it if it's completely in his hands, if he made an outrageous promise. There he didn't mean it either. So those are the rules of a smachta according to Tosfos. Okay, so Gemara weiter. Amarava. It's 7:17, and we only learned the first 3 words on that one. Let's see if the rest of it goes faster. Amarava. Hani beit lasa, the yayiv zuzi lechad, l'mizbin lehumidi. 3 people chipped in. They put their money in a pot, and they hired somebody to purchase something on their behalf. V'zavan lechad v'nai. He only bought for one of them. The halach is zavan lechulu. Automatically, they all 3 share in that purchase. V'lo amran. We don't say that this is the case. El leitzar v'chasim inish luchudei. Only if each person didn't give him a separate package of money that's labeled, this is for me. But if each person gave a separate batch of money, then we say it's not one lot, rather it's 3 separate shlichusin, and therefore leman de zaven zaven, leman de loy zaven loy zaven. The person who he purchased it for, that's who he purchased it for. The other 2 he didn't do their shlichus. Amar Papi Mishmei Derava. Hi situmsa kanya. What is a situmsa? Rashi says the way it used to work is the storekeepers, they would buy a whole lot of wine from a supplier, but they wouldn't have room in their store to keep all that wine. So what they would do is they would mark off on the whole bunch of barrels. Thank you so much. Let's buy the balabayas. Sold to this in the store, sold to, and then they would take the barrels over one at a time. They never made a kinyan, Mashiach. They never made a hagbah on those barrels. Is it a kinyan? Kanyat's kaida. L'may hilchasa. L'gabe, what is it kaida? There was no real kinyan done. Rav Chaviva Amar l'mekinyan mamish. No, it's a regular kinyan. Rabbanan Army l'kabulia meli bishapar. It's not really a kinyan. It just means that if the homeowner backs out, if the producer backs out, he'll get a mishapar. The hilchasa l'kabulia le mishapara. Halach l'may says it's not really a mechira. It's only a mishapara. However, in places where this is a kinyan, it would be a good kinyan. So you see from the Gemara here that the minik hamakim actually will create a kinyan. The machlokes were showing him if that's a kinyan deraisa or if that's a kinyan midrabanan. It means the rabbanan will force you to give the wine. That's the shayla. But I'll call upon him. L'maisa halacha is if there's a certain way that people agree to make a sale, and you do it that way, that's considered a sale. So, Lamashal, here the way you do a sale is all through signing contracts, right? That's considered 100% a mechira. Whatever the norm is, that's considered a mechira. Well, yeah. I'm not sure if I said Birchatoyah. I don't think I said Birchatoyah. The end of the Mishnah says that if this particular vendor had inventory even before the shark came out, he's allowed to sell it. Amarav mechusar shtayim poisek. What if it's not grain ready to be sold? It's missing 2 malachas. Poisek he could still sell. We consider it like he has inventory. Shalosh, if there's 3 steps in production missing, and we're going to see what these steps are. Eine poisek, that's not called like he has inventory. Shmuel Amar bidei adam, if the steps required do not only are human intervention, they don't require anything to happen from the Rabban Shalom in nature, then afilu meya poisek, because it's biyadai to make that inventory live. But bidei shemayim afilu achas einay poisek, because it's not in his control to make it happen. Tanan we learn poisek imoy ala godesh. Our Mishnah says you can be Pesach on the Gadish. Fragt Gemara, v'amechuser mishta b'chama l'meivash. Normally, after the wheat is piled up, three things have to occur. A, they have to be spread out to dry out. Ulamedish, after it's dried out, it's threshed. And after it's threshed, umidra, it's thrown up, and there's winnowing. Those three things have to happen. So we're missing B'dei Shemayim, and we're missing three steps. So how could you say Allah Gadish will be good? It's speaking after it was dried up. So there's only two steps remaining, threshing and winnowing. That will be good, according to everybody. According to Shmuel, who holds that if there's a step that's remaining, that's B'dei Shemayim. It's not considered live inventory. Winnowing is B'dei Shemayim, Rashi says, because you could only winnow if you have a ruach she'ein Metzia. A regular breeze will not winnow properly, because basically you throw up all the stuff and the shaft, the bathtub blows away and the seeds fall down. That will only work in a ruach she'ein Metzia. So tomorrow, no problem. Efsher b'nafasa. They had special bellows that they would make wind with, right? In movies, they have these big fans to make wind. You could make artificial wind. They used to have artificial wind. They had a whole bunch of accordion players with their bellows opening and closing, and that created wind with which they were able to thresh, or they able to winnow.
How could you?
You could make your own wind. Yeah. But how about a bucket full of a vat full of grapes that's starting to ferment and to allow, no, not ferment, time to ooze. In fact, the more about mechusar michmer. Michmer, as you leave it in the keli and it starts to ferment a little bit. Hukmam, they warm up a little bit. That's the beginning stages of when you press it. The yula matzarta. Then you have to bring it in and place it into the press. Lemedish to lidrech begas. Then once it's on the press, you have to press it. Ulamingad. Mingad is to allow the wine to flow from the press into the reservoir. That was a separate step. So you're missing michmar, you're missing v'yula matzarta, you're missing meidash, and you're missing mingad. You're missing four steps. It's in the Seifa. Reb Chia will soon in a minute. It said that it's referring to zaysim that already had that step of getting mechumam, hukmam. So here too, that was the case. So there's only three steps left. Hachanami alakay mishalanavim. So according to the Mandam who holds that if there's three steps missing, it's not good. Here you have three steps. This city is a city where the person who purchases the wine, he comes into the press and he's the one who lets the wine go into the reservoir. So there's only two steps missing: loading it into the press and pressing. The Gemara has the same shakal of attire, which is putting it into the oil press, to actually do the press, and then to allow the oil to flow into the reservoir. So the same thing, but Asher da who the Zavan, who's Mangid. So the obvious question is, why did Rav Chia say his comment that it's al koimer shal zaysim on zaysim? Why didn't he say it earlier already by another? Right? We had the problem by another already. So why did Rav Chia wait to zaysim to say it? So if you look down at the bottom, Tosfos says on the first wide line, tell you Rav Chia al koimer shal zaysim. V'im toimer amayla Rav Chia milsei areisha. David shal another. Why did he wait till the zaysim to say this? It's not so much the derech to do a novim like you do zaysim. Again, I don't know what the process is, but they did more with zaysim. What did you need it for? According to Shmuel, it's for the adam. Maybe that's also called b'dei shemayim because they have to warm up naturally. Again, I don't know exactly what the process is.
First thing that you do by this ice, you put it in the vat.
And then it has to get warm. It has to be warm.
It becomes softer.
And then it starts oozing. Okay.
No, it doesn't start. It just becomes. It comes out such a mile,
So that's oozing.
But it's just can oil.
I didn't say oil. I said it oozes. Valasid.
You attach the mechmer. What's the English word that you say? Huh?
Mass ripened almonds.
Okay. Valasid misha yishke'enu b'kipsha. If you want to sell sid, where at what point do we say you have inventory when it's in the oven? No. Oh, I skipped Beitzim. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a couple of lines. So Beitzim, what we said, potters, before they actually form the pot, they have a clump of clay. That's called the Beitzim. Once you have the Beitzim ready, the clump is there, we say the pot's in inventory. It's missing the actual forming, viyavushi, and drying it out, and iule le'esuna lemisraf, and to put it in the oven to forge. Ulamake, I can take it out of the oven. That's four pieces. That's five. Lafifa, Yavushi, Yulisunu Mishaf, Ulameka. Ulamishaf is also separate. Okay. So Kumar Kigoyin, the Malafafa. Maybe it's speaking that occurred already. Via Vishu. And it was also dried already. There's still three remaining, which is Lamisrif, which is Yulasun Lamishaf Ulamefak. So Kumar, the Asher, the Hudazov and Hudamafik. There, the person who buys it takes it out of the oven. Zogt more about it. Valasid misha yishka enu bekibsha. Take more about the mikla. Mikla is firing it up. Vafuke and then taking it out of the oven. Umedek and then you pour water on it and starts to dissolve into a powder, which is what you're trying to do because it comes out in chunks. You got to make it into a powder. Zogt more about Asra. In that city, the Hudazoven. Hahu Daik. He's the guy who breaks up the clumps. So therefore, we're not missing three. Well, the Shmuel Domer b'di Adam. Afilumei paisik. According to Shmuel, anything is b'di Adam. Even if there's 100 steps missing, you could still say you have inventory. Lama li mishiyishkenu b'kibshan. Why do you even need mishiyishkenu b'kibshan? Ema mishirayu l'shaket b'kibshan. You're right. It doesn't have to be in the kibshan. Once you have the raw materials that it's roy, that's good enough. So therefore, anytime there's only b'dei adam stuff remaining, according to Shmuel, that's considered live inventory. Valabeitzim shal yoytzer. Tanu Rabban. Ein poiskim valabeitzim shal yoytzer at sheyasu divrei Meir. Reb Meir, they have to be completed pots. There's no such thing as raw material being considered as if I have inventory. The pots have to be complete. So clearly that doesn't stem with our mission. But Rabbi Yosy holds, Hamed devar mamurim va'afer loven. Where do you say it has to be completed pots? That's offer love. And why? It's very uncommon to have this type of earth. When they would bring it in, then they would bring it. I'm sorry. So I think Rabbi Yossi is saying even beitzim that you need, that's only by offer love, and it has to be beitzim because it's harder to get. So you have to. It's not considered inventory until you actually have a clump of it ready to be formed. But if you had black earth, which was very common, the Gemara Rashi says, you don't even have to have access to. You don't even have to have the earth. Why? It's so common it'll be easy to get a hold. It's almost like the Yot Hashar. Like Kvar Chananya and its environs in Kvar Shichin. They have plenty of this earth there. On pottery from black earth. A Maimer Yoiv Zuzi, you know when a Maimer would already give money to purchase futures? Mechima Aila Afra. But when they brought earth in, Zokrashi, Misha Hiknis HaMoicher, Vitzaver Afra Bevese, once the Moicher had already earth in his house. Valver Shacherha, it was black. So this doesn't stem with anybody. Come on, Iker Meir, Hamer Achiasu, where Meir holds the pot has to be complete. Iker Yosi, Hamer Afal Bishain Zayesh Lazah. So why would a Maimar have waited till he had the earth? It's very common. So what does that mean? It was not so easy to get a hold of even black earth. So therefore, eat the Miley Afra, some Chadaiti say. Once I see the earth there, I believe I trust this product, I'll be Soymach Das. And therefore, once I give money, it's not a Kinyan Kesef. But as Rashi says, it's enough of a Smichas Das that it's an agreement, and therefore, if either one backs out, they'll get a Mishapara. But if you don't read yet, neither side, and therefore there will be no Mishapara. If you go back to our Mishnah, we have a little bit of a problem in our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah brings three shitas. So I'm going to go back to the Mishnah. It says, Upoiskin imoy al zevel kol mishana. It's masha what you have or you don't have, right? It's very readily available. You have to have inventory. which means the same thing as Rabbi Yosy. The Gemara wants to know the Chachamim and Rabbi Yosy seem to say the very same halacha. Zok to Gemara, Chachamim hainu Tanakam. The Chachamim seem to be the same thing as Rabbi Yosy, the Tanakam. Omarava, Zok Rava, no, there's a difference between the Tanakam and the Chachamim. Yemoisak Yeshama Mikabinah. And Rashi says, Tanakama, Rabbi Yosy, you said you could be poisik even though you don't have. He means Kol Yemoisak Shonakamer. There's no restriction. You can always sell Zevel even though you don't have it. Upalagala Rabbi Yosy. Now we're going to learn something new in Rashi today. We think Zevel is fresh manure. No. Zevel is manure that got bumped around on the roads and people stomped on it and it's crushed. Only then it's processed, ready to be manure. So therefore, Upalagala Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy argues, the Amar, Lo Yishna Yemoisak Chama, V'lo Yishna Yemoisak Shamim. It doesn't matter. Achi Yehela. Rabbi Yosy holds you have to have it in stock. You have to have in your bags, manure bags. The third sheet of Chamatirin, Afalpi Shein Lo Yesh Lachayim. That's only in Yemoisak Chama. That's only in the summer. Why? Because in the summer the winter had already passed. Shakol Yesh Lan Zevel Shekfar Nirkav V'Nishuf V'Yemoisak Shamim V'Nasan Hevel. The manure was in the mud on the streets all winter long, and people stepped on it, and animals stepped on it, and then it becomes manure. So in the summer, people already have a nice inventory of manure. Because it might not be ready.
It's allowed to leave.
That's right. We don't you're allowed to leave there because you need to, but you're still mechuyev to any damage. So we said that I could make a deal that if it drops in value, I'm paying you now based on $5 a dozen. But if it ends up going down to $4 a dozen, I want a better price. So I want the best of the best. Whatever the lowest price will be, whether it's now, whether it's later, that's the price I want. And you can make that up. Mashma, you can make it up, but if you didn't, too bad. You're stuck with the original price. And if it went down in value, too bad for you. But if you specify that's what you want, only then will you be able to take advantage of the lowest price. So I love this story. Chosson is getting engaged. And the twist and the end of the Gemara will be even more geschmack than the whole story. A guy's getting engaged. So when he's getting engaged, the kala has to come into the marriage with seeding in. Nowadays, the chosson has to buy the seeding in, right? The chosson has to buy the jewelry. In those days, the father of the kala had to send her supplied with jewelry. Mind you, he didn't have to support the item. The item had to make his own panusa. So he could pay jewelry. Ask every share, would you rather buy jewelry for your daughter, or would you rather support your Aiden for 10 years? So for sure, I'd much rather support my Aiden for 10 years. I've had that. Oh, I married off on my daughter already. I can say the truth now. So Zok to Gemara. So what happened is the Shver asked the Aiden, do me a favor, go to the jewelry store and put down a deposit for the jewelry on my behalf. So Gabi the Yoiv Zuzi the Dunya, the Veichamu, on behalf of a Shver, and the Soiv Zol Nadunya. Now, 6 months later, they're making the chasana and they're ready to pick up the jewelry. The jewelry dropped in value. So now the question is the Shver locked in to buy the jewelry for the more expensive price? This story has to be theoretical only. Did you ever have a situation where the jewelry went down? Okay. Also, the Rav Papa. So they came in front of Rav Papa to see if he could back out of the deal. Okay. This is what Rav Papa said. If when the Adam put the deposit down, he didn't put the deposit, he paid for it in full, right? He stipulated this, that I want the best price between now and whenever I take the goods, then Shakal Kashta. Then that's the deal, and he can get the lower price. But if he didn't stipulate that, Shakal Kimei Kara, too bad for him. He obliged himself, and they have to pay in full. Amalei Rabban Papa, I don't understand what you're asking. The Eloi Pasak, Shakal Kimei Kara. How could you say that if he didn't specify that he wants the lower price, he's obliged now to pay the higher price? Moisnu, there was never a kinyan mashicha. At best, there was only a kinyan kesef. Umayis loikanu. We know kinyan kesef is not kaina. So why can he back out? You'll say he gets to be shafara. So Amr Lahu, Rav Papa said, yeah, when I paskin that he has to agree, he has to accept the jewelry at a higher price based on the price it was when he bought it. Anonami lekabuli alei misha para kamina. I meant that he has to accept, if he's going to back out of the deal, he has to accept the misha para. If they made up that the purchaser is going to get the best price no matter what, and now the moicher refuses to release it for the best price, then moicher kahadabe. The moicher is reneging on the agreement, and therefore makabel alei moicher mishapar. But he loy pasak loikeach kahadabe. If they didn't make a deal, a special allowance, that means the obligation was sealed at the price that it was when the kesef was paid. Now the loikeach wants to back out. Therefore, makabel alei loikeach mishapar. So that's what the Gemara says. Now we need to stop a second, because when we learned in Perek Hazov, the halacha that kinyan kesef is not koina, what happens if I give the kesef and I decide to back out? Is it koina or is it not? So what if the loikeach decides to back out? Can he back out? So we learned there's a machlokes. According to the Tanakama, according to the Rabbanan, either party could back out. According to Rab Shimon, it was Misha Hakesef B'Yodai Yodai Al Ha'Elyoina, which means the Moicher could back out, but Lakeach can't back out. And what was the reasoning behind it? Why did the Rabbanan say that Kinyan Kesef doesn't work? Because Gzeira Shema Yoimu Chitcha Nisrafu Balia. We're afraid there'll be a fire in the Moicher's warehouse, and the Moicher wouldn't be concerned about salvaging that wheat. So what did they say? They said that the moicher could back out, according to Reb Shimon, because if the moicher could back out, then the moicher is going to salvage it. Even if the lakeach can't back out, the moicher is going to salvage it. You know why? Because he wants to salvage it, because if it goes up in value, he could then sell it to somebody else, because he could back out. So in order to mitigate the concern of Nishra for Chitch Aliyah, they didn't have to mevatel the mecher. All they had to do is allow the moicher to back out. So now there's value in the moicher, to the moicher, to protect the wheat. The Rabbanan said no. Once they said that the moicher could back out, the lakeach could also back out. So now let's analyze. Right now, Rav Papa said that by this kinyan kesef, the moicher and the lakeach won't be able to back out. They'll be makabel mishapara, right? So let's analyze this. Amalei Ravina l'Rav Papa. Umimai de Rabbanani. You're making an assumption that we paskin over here, like the Rabbanan, our Mishnah that says that unless you're poisek imay kishar gvoya, you have to take the deal as you made it. How do you know that's going according to the shita of the Rabbanan? Umimai zok to Gemara, the umay de Rabbanan he, the pliga le Rab Shimon. How do you know that our Mishnah is following the shita of the Rabbanan, who holds that both the loikeach and the moicher can back out? The army moish loikanu, and nevertheless, what does our Mishnah say? Even though moish is not koina, and both the moicher and the loikeach can back out, only if he stipulated that I want the best price, does he get the lower price that's available today. But he loy pasak shakol to kidemikara, and in the Rabbanan, you're going to learn pshat of the Mishnah, and we're going to pass like the Rabbanan, and therefore Rav Papa is saying the same thing over here, that if you didn't stipulate, you're going to have a mishapara according to the Rabbanan if you don't go through with the deal. Who said? Maybe Dilma Rab Shimoni. Maybe our Mishnah that's machmir on the lakeach, that doesn't allow the lakeach to back out if he didn't stipulate that I want the lower price. Maybe that's only going to Rab Shimon, who the lakeach anyway can't back out, because the takana was only made that the moicher can back out. Dilma, our Mishnah that says that lakeach can back out is Rab Shimoni. Domer mois kainos. Mikra didn't mois kainos, and lakeach can't back out. And therefore, the chipazak kishar hagavoya shakel kihashta. And our Mishnah says that if you stipulated that I want the best price, yes, then he's allowed to get the lower price because it went down in value. And the loy pasak shakel could be kara. But if he didn't speak it out, he has to pay the higher price. Mishum dekani lezuze, because it's takakin. Who's the Mishnah has nothing to do with mishaparas? The Mishnah might be talking about a kinyan gomer because the lakeach cannot back out. But we don't pass like Reb Shimon. We pass like the Rabbanon. And maybe aval Rabbanon, bein pasak, bein loy pasak, shakel kihashta. But according to the Rabbanon, even if he didn't stipulate, even because according to the Rabbanon, there is no advantage that the moicher has over the lekeach. They're both on equal ground. So maybe according to the Rabbanon would agree that even if I didn't stipulate, I get to take advantage of the lower price. Why? They died to the Inish at Tarazila. Everybody wants always the best price. So we'll say even though he didn't speak it out, maybe he meant it. So therefore, how could you Rapapa Pascha the Chumrah that the Adam can't back out? Maybe according to the Rabbanon, they could back out. And maybe our whole mission is going to go to Shimon, who's more machmer on the lekeach. That was whose kasha was that? That was Ravina's kasha.
And so the giving of the money is loy mal of loy mod al pirabuna.
What do you mean? It's very milamor. It's right. It's not a kinyan. It's not a kinyan. Yeah, it's not a kinyan at all. And therefore, if there's no reason to back out, if the shar didn't change, there's a mishapara. But if the shar changed, maybe I don't even get a mishapara. Omer lay. So Rav Papa said, "Nish git gelert." You won't be able to learn that way. Amor the Omer Rab Shimon bechatara. Where is there a machloikis between Rab Shimon and the Rabbanon if the lekeach could back out? That's when the price didn't change. You only find in our Mishnah, in the Mishnah of Azov, that there's a machloikis Rab Shimon and the Rabbanon when the price didn't change. But when the price dropped, we never ever saw much. There's no reason to make a distinction between Rab Shimon and the Rabbanon. They'll both agree. So don't say that our Mishnah is going according to Rab Shimon and we all like Rabbanon. Rab Shimon and the Rabbanon would not be arguing in the case where the price dropped. So therefore, betray Tari mi Omar, and therefore the Mishnah, our Mishnah that says Dafka, if you made up that you get the lower price, is going to the Chulam. So my psak is good. L'chula alma. If the Adam didn't speak out that he wants the lower price, he's got to pay the higher price. And I'll prove it to you. The loyte mahachi, if you're not going to say this, in other words, if you're going to say that Rabbi Shimon argues, and even by trade Tyree, Misha Para Bilakeach, Rabbi Shimon lastly, then you're never going to have a Misha Para according to Rabbi Shimon. Why? Because in the case of if it didn't go up, so if it didn't go up or down in value, according to Reb Shimon, the Lakech can't back out. Mikra did. It's a good Kenyan. That's why I can't back out. And if the price dropped, then there's not even a Mishapara. So you'll never have a case where there's a Mishapara according to Reb Shimon. And if you want to say, yeah, maybe Reb Shimon, the whole Mishapara business is only according to the Rabbanan. Maybe there's no Mishapara business according to Reb Shimon. You cannot say that. Because Vatanya, we learned back in Yehazov, Reb Shimon said, this is quoting Reb Shimon speaking, Mikol Mokim Kachalocha. Yes, Kinyan Kesef doesn't work. I will Amru Chachama Mishapara. What does it mean, Mikol Mokim? Because it's a Kachalocha. What does it mean, Mikol Mokim? My Mikol Mokim, Lab, the Loishno Lakeach, the Loishno Moicher, the Kabbalah Mishapara. Reb Shimon specifically said that there will be a case when even the Lakeach is Makabbalah Mishapara. If you're going to tell me by Reb Shimon it's either Kinyan or no Kinyan, but no Mishapara, you can't say that. Because Reb Shimon clearly says that you sometimes find by the Lakeach and Mishapara. So it must be that when is there a Mishapara but Lakeach? If the Shar doesn't change, it's a Kinyan Gomer, Lakeach can't back out. If the Shar changed, then it's not a Kinyan Gomer, but there will be a Mishapara. So Zok to Gemara, you're forced to say, where did Reb Shimon say the Kinyan remains and the Lakeach can't back out even if he wants to? That's if the price didn't change. But Petrei Tyree, Peloy Omar, he didn't say that there's a Kinyan Gomer, but there will be a Mishapar. And therefore, our Mishnah here is going Sai according to Reb Shimon, Sai according to Rabbanon, that there will be a Mishapara if you back out when the price goes down. So therefore, Reb Papa Sak stands, and the Adam is stuck, he's got to pay full price. So Amarle, Reb Achaber de Rav, Reb Ashi, but we got another problem. The other problem is, why should the Shver have to pay the higher price? But typically, the Shliach Shavya Meikar. Yes, the Adam didn't stipulate, but the Adam is only a Shliach of the father-in-law. We know there's a rule that the Kune Shalachti v'lo lavasi. So if your deal that you made on my behalf with the jewelry merchant is bad for me, like in this case, you're a Shliach. So I have a great loophole. The loophole is that the Adam was never authorized to buy the jewelry in the first place. How come our Papa didn't think of that one? You know why? Because this is an Adam, a slime bag. He's trying to make money off a shver. But Tagrid is oven the mountain. When the shver told him to go buy jewelry, he didn't. He told the shver, the jewelry shop told him it's $100. He told the shver it's $150 because he was going to make money on the deal. So he was actually buying it for himself from the jeweler, and then he was going to sell it to the shver. Now the shver says, I don't need it anymore. Keep the jewelry. I'll buy it for cheaper. So that's why he's liable. Gewaltig. The other item. Sagt Gemara weiter. Malva Adam es arisov chiten bechiten lizera. Normally, you're not allowed to lend saw b'saw. But if you're lending your oris, we had this case earlier, if you're lending him chiten to plant the field, then you're allowed to lend him chiten bechiten. Avoloy lechol, but not just to lend him to eat it, I'll pay you back later. Why does it, we're going to soon learn why it's not a problem, why it's not a problem with saw b'saw. But let's put that aside. Why is it important that the Mishnah tell us this? Because there were people who were machmer and didn't allow it. Show you Rabbi Gamliel, malvus arisa of chitin bechitin, lezera. If it was b'yarka v'huzlu, or b'zol v'hukru, either way, no ment kishar oil. No matter what, he only took, so if it went up in value, he wouldn't take back from them the amount in wheat. Because he gave him $100 worth of wheat, and now when they're giving it back to it, it's $150. He would only accept from them $100 worth. So he was machmer on himself, even in such a case. But Rabbi Gamliel didn't do that because it's halacha. But really, this type of saw b'saw is allowed. We'll have to see why. Tanu Rabbanim. Mal ve'odem es arisa of chitin bechitin lazera. Zok the brayse. V'medavam amurim shelo yorad. That's only if the oris didn't start working yet. He didn't come to the field yet before he started. So the deal was not really sealed yet. Avol yorad, but once the oris went down to the field, now he couldn't have plowed yet. He doesn't have seeds, but he might have plowed. Once the oris plowed already and he's there, osir, then you can no longer give him the chit. So, frek the Gemara, ma'ishna tanadi don the loika maflik ben yorad ben lo yorad. Our Tana doesn't make this distinction. Regardless, our Tana says you're allowed to lend chitim to the oris to be able to plant the field. U'ma'ishna tana bra, and why there's a brisa, the kamaflik ben yorad ben lo yorad. The brisa said there is a difference. Once it's yours, you can't do it anymore. Amarava, Rabbi Idi Asbri Naheli. Rabbi Idi was matched between this whole Indian. And but Asbri the Tana did done in our Mishnah, the minig of the place where our Tana lived, Arisa Yov Bizra. You know who's responsible to provide the seeds? The Orish is responsible to provide the seeds. Therefore, Vein Yorad, Uvein Yorad, it doesn't make a difference if he came or if he didn't come. If he doesn't have seeds, even if he plowed already, he doesn't have seeds. He can't do his job. I could throw him off because you're not able to do the job. If you're not able to do the job, even though you plowed already, too bad, I'm going to throw you off. So Bein Yorad, Bein Lo Yorad, Kama de Lo Yoyiv Bizra Motzim Misalakle. Since he doesn't have seeds, I can throw him away. So what's happening now? I'm not lending you seeds. Because I'm lending you seeds, it's saw b'saw. What I'm doing is, oh, you don't have seeds, I'm throwing you off. If you want, we'll make a whole new Arisas agreement. The new Arisa agreement will be that instead of you working in my field and you get half, you'll work in my field and you'll get half minus what I lay out. So now it's not ribbis anymore. Now it's just renegotiating the original Arisa's contract. However, by Tana Bra, and therefore when he's coming now with my seeds that I lend him to plant the field, that's a new Arisa's deal and arrangement where he has to pay me back in addition to the half that he's going to give me or whatever portion he's going to give me. He's also going to give me these extra seeds. But after the ton of bara, Mari Amayav Bizra, you know whose responsibility is to give the seeds? It's the responsibility of the Mara, of the owner. So therefore, Elo Yarad, if the Oris didn't start working yet, he didn't plow yet. So till he starts plowing, we don't say that the kinyan in the deal is sealed. So therefore, Namatzi Misalakle, I can break the deal now. So therefore, if we now make a deal before he was Yorad, for me to supply him seeds, then Kika Nachas Levatzer Mehachika Nachas. If I'm asking for my seeds back, we'll say that it just means he renegotiated our Arisa agreement. But a Yorad, but once he went down already and he plowed, the Bailam can't back out anymore. So by providing seeds, even though he's going to provide the seeds, but now he's providing the Torah's loan. The Loimotzi Misalakle Osir, therefore, would be Osir to do, because now it's Torah's loan. I'm sorry? It's Sabasah, that's right. Okay, let's stop here and we'll be Mamshach B'Shem tomorrow. The only question I have is if the Bailam has to supply the seeds, so why is it alone? I have to supply them. Does the article say anything? Unless I have to supply it, but he has to give it back. That's what I wasn't sure about.
Maybe because
What does the article say anything about it?
maybe planting local helps. That's why the